In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to rehab an injury faster. So we're going to be looking at the soft tissues, the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons. We are talking at it from a general perspective. What it's going to be able to do is obviously heal the tissue faster. It's going to be able to get it back to performance, whatever that performance may be, everyday life or a sport. It's going to be able to get that back faster. In some ways, it will build it back stronger, and it will certainly build it back faster. So I'm just going to start by bringing you down to this diagram at the bottom of the screen. So what we've got are some basic different phases. So what you can see here is you've got this initial bleeding phase, which is sort of hours and days. Then you've got the inflammatory phase, which can take days to weeks. Then you've got the proliferation phase, which can take days to months. And then finally, you've got the remodeling phase when it comes to sort of weeks and obviously months as well. So we're going to be focusing most of our time on proliferation and remodeling, because that's where the work that I do comes in most effectively. But it's useful to know the phases before, for the very simple reason you kind of then get an understanding of this is the early phase is the natural process. You've got to let the body go through its natural process. Once that's settled, then you can start going through that sort of man-made process, which from my perspective would be sports massage when it comes to the soft tissues, the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles and the fascia. So if we look at this inflammatory phase and sort of the bleeding phase, so if there's a torn muscle, a lot of people think they might have a torn muscle, but if you have a torn muscle, as a general rule, there will be blood or a bruise that comes out with it, because when the muscle tears, obviously the vessels are tearing as well, and then the blood goes out into the extracellular matrix, and that's where sort of, let's just say, the blood sort of dries, and that's where you get the bruise effect with it. So we then get the inflammatory phase. So you've got cardinal signs of inflammation, you've got pain, swelling, redness, and then you get the release of chemical mediators, resulting in vasodilation and increased permeability of vessels, causing edema. So what we're effectively looking at from the perspective of someone with the injury, we're looking at pain, swelling, and redness. So this is the initial phase. This is where your body kind of needs to go through its natural process. So it needs to release all the various chemicals to, let's just say, deaden the pain. It will swell it up because that's introducing fluids to the area, blood being one of them. And obviously then the pain is there as a feedback system to say there's a problem here. I don't want you using this joint effectively. And that's where you may create a limp or stop using a hand or whatever it may be. So this essentially is what's happening straight away. Obviously this is just all about, this is, let's just say, the rest phase. So you need to rest it, you need to let the body go through its natural process. So what we'll now do, because there's not a great deal to talk about with regards to that, because it is just let the body do what it needs to do. So what we'll talk about now is the proliferation phase, where we can now start having an influence on that healing process. Next we have proliferation/repair phase. Now, up to 3 weeks, this is useful to know. You get the elimination of debris. So any sort of, I don't know, waste material, any old fibres, any old cells that aren't being used or can't be used anymore, all of that will get eliminated. Then you get the regeneration of endothelial cells, production of fibroblasts, collagen and other protein fibres are laid down, and this is I suppose the important bit, in a haphazard manner. So you get this sort of scar tissue that just sort of lays itself down as an intermediary tissue to sort of, let's just say, cover over the problem as the proper protein fibres, muscle fibres, ligament fibres, tendon fibres are being laid down, ready for the sort of the full repair. Now, here obviously we're getting rid of old material and bringing new in. So this is up to 3 weeks. So when we were talking about the inflammation phase, with regards to letting it happen, it can last up to that 3-week phase, because you then sort of build into this proliferation phase and repair phase. But what's starting to happen now is the important bits for when it comes to me as a sports massage therapist. the important bits that I need to be able then to do my job correctly and assist that healing process with my, let's just say, man-made application of sports massage. So when we get to that sort of 6-week phase, what now starts to happen is protein fibers and scar tissue orientate themselves in the, and this is again the important bit, in the direction in which pressure applies. So what this basically means is with your movement and with your, or with a sports massage therapist, for example, this is what I mechanically start doing with my thumbs, my knuckles, the palm of my hand, my elbow, whatever it may be, is I start helping the protein fibers in the scar tissue, because as I mentioned, it's haphazard before, so it's just laying itself down just as a means of sort of protecting itself. But as fibers need to run in a specific direction, sometimes it needs a bit of help with that. So movement can do that, so using the muscle can do that, and sort of manual therapy, like a sports massage, can help that as well. Because if it stays in that haphazard manner and we keep resting for too long, that's a weak spot in the muscle or a weak spot in the joint. And that's where past injuries can then influence future injuries. So what we need to be able to do is, with the injury, we need to get it right so it minimizes our risk in the future of it happening again. So, and this may take months to fully mature and achieve full strength. But this is the important bit. So when we are starting with a sports massage, we also need stretch and we also need movement. So when we come onto the remodeling phase next, there is no, as you could see from the first diagram, it's not, there's one phase and then the next phase begins and then the next phase begins. It's not one and then the other. There is an overlap to it. So what we get is you get the inflammation, you get the proliferation, you get the remodeling. So there are these overlaps that they need to start as one is going on. So during the, let's just say the sort of the first course of sports massage, there needs to be stretching and there needs to be movement involved. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So the remodeling phase is the final phase. It occurs once the wound has closed, involves remodeling, and cellular activity reduces, and obviously the blood vessels in the wounded area regress and decrease. So it basically goes back to normal. So as I've mentioned, there are essentially 3 steps that we need to use. First one is some sort of massage, and that could be self-massage, that could be using a foam roller, or employing someone like me to do it for you. Then you've got the stretches, again, to try and get the elasticity and the length back into the muscles, because again, with that weakened area, with the scar tissue, again, it's not a great material for pliability. It's quite a stiff material, so it can bring stiffness to the area. So when we start stretching it and adding that stimulus to the muscle, what it will do is it will create that elasticity with the new fibers that go down. So when we look at a muscle, there are certain components that it has. One of them is the elasticity, the ability to stretch and then recoil. Obviously, we've got other ones which are the motor unit recruitment and firing of the muscle, which is the contraction of it. But also what we've got is the movement. And as I mentioned in the last slide, the fibers will remodel themselves in the direction that the force is applied. So, for example, a very good types of exercises, if there is, let's just say, knee problems or thigh muscle or quad muscle problems, hamstring muscle problems, are things like squats, lunges, and deadlifts. For the very simple reason that they are moving the muscle in an everyday way, because we squat up and down every day, we bend forward every day and lift every day. We are, although it's an exaggerated movement, we are walking every day. So we've got the lunging type movements. So we're using the muscles in that everyday sort of way, but we're doing it in a formal way and a structured way where we can, where we're challenging the muscles to rebuild themselves back to the way they were before. So we have to use these 3 steps, because if you just use massage, that's great. The tissues will start to remodel themselves, but they won't get the stimulus they need from the stretching and the movement that sort of completes the process. So that's where sports massage and training and exercise, and again using me as a personal trainer, sports massage therapist and personal trainer, you sort of get the complete journey. If you just go to a sports massage therapist, you get one stage. If you just go to a PT, you just get the back end stage. If you can employ all of that, then you get the whole process all the way through. So it's a very simple process in the way that it's explained, but again, it comes down to the specific nature of the injury. So that is essentially my way of describing how you rehab faster.